Hey everybody, welcome back to the third part of the absolute beginner's guide to modeling in Blender for 3D printing, or as was suggested in the last video, somebody said we should just call it Blender 2.8 Start Here, and I think that that's a great, simple, to the point title. Absolutely fantastic. I might use that. So in the last video, we learned how to move objects around. We learned how to use the grab and move command to do that. We could grab an object and we could move it around, but it was moving relative to our view plane, and if we wanted to control it, we could, while we're moving it, hit X to move it in just the X, Y to move it in just a Y or Z. But if we wanted to move it in two at once, we could hit like Shift X and that'll move it in everything but the X, or Shift Y, and that'll move it in everything but the Y, or Shift Z will move it around the ground plane. And I'll just put that right there. So I then challenged you to make a totem pole. And my monkey totem pole here, I realized that if I brought the monkeys forward just a little bit, I'd be able to see their face, so I did that. I put a cone on the bottom, and I put two cubes on the side. And yes, I used the Shift Y while moving to do that. And I hope that you took the opportunity to do that, but you also could have used the gimbal here. And the gimbal has a lot of that same functionality built right into it. A lot of people find that easier. One thing that the gimbal is good for is if you're doing one thing, but if you are switching between different ones, having to go all the way over here to click is a little bit cumbersome, which is why I'm teaching you the hotkeys. I really believe that that's a faster method, and I hope that you have taken the opportunity to follow along with me as I've been doing that, and I hope that you'll take the opportunity to follow along with me today as we go through a couple more transformation commands. This will be the last video. Our pace is going to start picking up after this because I'm going to assume that you've taken the time to practice and get good at the commands that we've taught so far so that we can go forward at a faster pace. You might not believe it, but you've been learning a lot more than just a couple of things that these videos have been about, but we'll recap that next time. For now, let's clear our scene and start all over. So, File, New, General. You can save it if you want. I'm going to just discard those changes. We've got the new default scene, and we need to clear it all out. Do you remember how to do that? If you hit A, you'll select everything, and then if you hit the delete key or X, you can delete it all away, and there's an empty scene. Fantastic. Let's start by adding a monkey. So hit Shift A, choose Mesh, and add a monkey. There's our monkey shape right in the middle, and you can orbit the view around and zoom in a little bit on that monkey, but I want you to rest on a non-planar view, not front or top or side, at an odd angle, okay? And let's go into the object menu in the upper right hand side of our view over here. So view, select, add object. Remember all of our commands, we can find them in that menu right there. Object, transform, and the next transform command is rotate. So let's try that out. I'm going to click it here, but notice that the hotkey before you click it is R. Okay, we'll come back to doing it with R next time. I'll just click it this time to start the rotation. Start moving your mouse around and stop it somewhere not where you started. And then once you've set that rotation, orbit your view around and maybe even look at it from the front and side and back, and notice that it's a weird rotation. It's like it's rotated 2 or 3 different ways at a time. Now you might have already figured out what was happening here, that this monkey is being rotated based on your plane of view. Essentially, let's G to grab and move this monkey in the X, or in the Y actually. Let's just get it out of the way. And let's Shift A to add a new monkey. Oh, I moved it into Y when I should have moved it. No, that's okay. We're going to go with Y to dispose of our monkeys. Okay, so if I look at it from, let's look at it from the top view. Let's hit 7 to go to our top view, then hit rotate. Rotate it around and stop it at anywhere, really. And notice that now its movement, if we look at it from the side or from the back or wherever, that this monkey it's still perfectly upright. It's just rotated around like it's spun around like a top. So yes, just like with movement, with grabbing and moving things, rotation is based on what view we're at. So if we look at it from an odd angle, it will essentially be rotating around a view. Let's rotate this. Let's just move to an odd angle. Actually, let's take this one. Let's move it into Y, get him out of the way. I'll put him a little bit further. Actually, I'm just going to put these both. I'm going to grab them both and move them into Y. Back out of the way. We're going to add another monkey in here. Let's do the odd angle here. If I were to rotate it right now, don't hit R, or you can if you want, but the rotation, the view of rotation is essentially from our eyes through the middle of the object, and it's rotating around that on a spit. So now hit R at an odd view angle, hit R, rotate. Do you see what I'm talking about? How it's rotating it like on a spit directly from our view. Now I want you to cancel out of this motion. Either hit the escape key or hit the right mouse button or left mouse button if you choose right mouse select. But I'm going to assume that you're going with left mouse select. Hit the right mouse button and back that out. Okay? And now you'll notice that the rotation has been canceled, so that's a good thing to do. If you set it, you can hit Control Z and go back. You're not lost yet. Okay? And let's just try the front view, hit 1, hit rotate, spin it around, set it anywhere really, just not in the normal place, and then look at it from the side and look at it from the top, and sure enough, it's still looking forward. It just did a barrel roll, essentially. Let's GY, get that guy out of the way. Just like with movement, we can constrain our rotation just by using a hotkey. Now, if you are suited to using the gimbal, so let's Shift A and add a monkey in here. And let's talk about the gimbal. Over here on the way right-hand side of our 3D view, there's under the Move gimbal, there's a Rotate gimbal, and you can click it. And now you can rotate your object. If you click the green circle around like a barrel roll, if you hit the red circle, you can tumble it. If you hit the blue circle, you can spin it like a top. So that's pretty cool. The one thing I don't like about the gimbals is it's difficult to go from movement to rotation to scaling, which we'll talk about next. And I would rather use the hotkeys, and so we're going to practice that a little bit. So instead, what I want you to do, let's just G to move that monkey out of the way with the Y, get him out of the way back there. And let's Shift A, let's add our last monkey. Well, yeah, this will probably be our last one. I'm going to click off of use the select gimbal, the default gimbal. Make sure your view is at an odd angle. Hit R to rotate. Now we're rotating at that odd angle, but while you're rotating, hit Y. And there we're rotating around the Y axis. Just move your mouse around to see that rotation. That's pretty cool. We're rotating around the Y. We've got like a barrel roll thing going on. And hit switch and hit Z. And see how we're rotating around like a top. Switch and hit X. See how now we're tumbling around. Now, you might remember with movement, you could hit Shift X, Shift Z, and it would do everything but the X or the Z or whichever one you choose. I wonder how that affects rotation. And what if we rotated around everything but the Z? Let's hit Shift Z. We haven't baked in that move, or if you have, you can undo it. But start the rotation, hit Shift Z, and take a look. It's now just rotating around Z. Z or Shift Z. Z, Shift Z, Shift Z. Doesn't seem to make any difference. And that kind of makes sense if you think about it. If you're rotating it around the Z, it's going to rotate like a top. If you're rotating it along the XY plane, and I realize that that's a different idea, but it also just rotates it like a top. So Shift Z and Z, Shift X and X, they don't really have any difference with rotation, but we'll fix that later. So let's set that rotation anywhere we go, and hopefully you've got a handle on rotation. Now, I'm not going to worry about drilling this exercise into you. We'll have time for that later because I want to start talking about scaling. So I'm going to hit A and delete to get rid of all these monkeys. Start with a clean scene. Shift A. Let's add a new monkey. I do like the monkey because it's easy to see from different angles what's happening to it. And let's go take a look at our last major transformation. So go up to the object menu, transform, and there's scale. Okay, let's hit it. Hit scale, start moving the mouse, and notice how you can make it smaller or bigger. And notice how sometimes your mouse will fall off the edge. That's fine. We expect that. Let's make this monkey teeny tiny. We still want to be able to see it, but there we've got a teeny tiny monkey. Now let's hit G and X and move this monkey out of the way. Let's hit Shift A and add a new monkey. See how much bigger it is than the other one right there. Is scale affected by the view in the same way that rotation and movement was? Let's find out. Let's go to the front view. Let's hit 1. Let's hit scale again, and let's make this monkey, well, small, just like the other one. Try and make it match the other one just a little bit. Then let's hit G and X and move it next to each other. And let's take a look at these two monkeys close to each other. If we remember, you can hit Shift and middle mouse click to pan your view closer to the monkeys. But if we do this, we'll see that these monkeys from top view, where'd they go? There we go. Top view, side view, back view, front view, they are the same. The view doesn't affect the scale like it does the movement and rotate. So when you scale things bigger or smaller, they just get bigger or smaller no matter which view you're doing it in. But we can affect it with the modifiers while we're using it. So let's zoom out. Let's Shift A to add a new monkey and then hit Shift C. Shift C. There we go. To center our view on it. And there's our new monkey. Let's hit S to start scaling it, and let's scale it up. But let's scale it up only in the Z. So hit Z while we're scaling it up, and check out what happens. Make it nice and tall. Click it, hit it, and rotate your view, orbit your view around this new strange stretched monkey. Look at this. That is weird. Let's hit G and X, get him out of the way. Let's hit Shift A to add a new monkey. And let's scale it in the Y. Oh my goodness, it looks like an alien monkey this way. Orbit your view to see what that does. So we're only scaling it in the Y. Let's hit G, let's hit X. Let's hit Shift A, and I think you guys know. Let's add a monkey. What would happen if we hit scale and do it by the X? So let's try one of our Shift X's. Do we want to try Shift X, Shift Y, or Shift Z? I think we're going to start with Shift Z. So let's hit scale. Let's scale it in all but the Z. So hit Shift Z. Is this going to work? Try and predict in your mind what's going to happen when you start moving your mouse and then move your mouse. Shift Z, it's going to move it in the X and the Y. It's going to scale it in the X and the Y. So I think we're going to have like a platter monkey when we're done here. Let's scale it up and find out. Sure enough, let's orbit the view. That is the weirdest looking monkey. All right, now I'm running out of room on my screen, so I'm going to hit A to select everything, move them all in the X. Shift A to add a new monkey. We're going to hit scale this time, and we're going to scale it in the Shift Y. Let's take a look at it. A big flat monkey. Isn't that cute? And if we hit Shift X, it'll be tall and thin and wide, or tall and long, but very thin. So do you see how all of these operations, how you can control things with the scale now? All right. Now this video is going to be a little bit shorter than others because I want you to have time for your homework today. This is a fun one. With movement, rotation, and scale, we can actually create like good 3D models and being able to add some primitives in. So I'm going to clear my scene. A to select all, X to delete it all out. Hopefully that's getting to be muscle memory for you. I'm going to hit Shift C. Oh, it won't recenter my view unless I have something. So I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to add, you can add UV sphere or icosphere. Your homework is make a snowman. Okay? So we're going to start with balls, and we're going to scale them up to make one big and the one above it smaller and the one above it smaller. So I'm going to make this, actually maybe I'll just undo it, leave it at this size, GZ, move it up, and we'll put the body below it. But first, I'm going to Shift A to add a cone here. And I want this cone to be tall and thin. So I'm going to use, what would I use to turn this cone to be tall and thin? Scale, right? So we hit S, but we scale it only in the X and Y and not in the Z. So we hit Shift Z and scale it down until it's tall and thin. Then click it. Then I'm going to, well, what is this going to be? You know what this is going to be. This is the snowman's nose. So we want to rotate it from being up to being out. So we need to rotate it around the X. So hit R, hit X to fix it to the X. Try and point it, as out as you can. And then we want to put this nose on the snowman. So hit G, hit Shift Y so that we don't, or Shift X, sorry, so that we are going forward, backward, and up, not side to side, to keep that nose centered on there. And then drop that nose in. That's a big nose. Maybe I can click the head and scale it up a little bit. And if I need to move the nose into Y just a little bit, I know how to do that now. But there we go. We've got our snowman head. We've got our snowman nose. And I want you to build the rest of the snowman. Now, I'm going to give you another tip. Let's say that we add a cylinder, or we add a sphere in here. We make this be the bottom sphere. Then we, add another sphere, and we don't see it. We can kind of see the outline of it there. That's interesting, but it's because this new sphere and this new object is inside. They all get placed at the cursor point, and that's in the center of the view. Because it's inside there, oh, what a pain in the neck. How are we going to select it? Well, you can change your view. If you hit the Z button, it will pop up a little menu and it'll say, how do you want to display this? Right now we can see that we've got a solid view, but we could also display it rendered. Well, we're not going to worry too much about renders. We could do look dev. I'm not sure what look dev is. Well, I'm sure what look dev is, but it's kind of halfway between a solid view and a rendered view. It's got more than normally solid view does, but not as fancy as rendered. No, we want a wireframe. If we go into wireframe mode, now we can see all of the objects and we can see through the objects and see where they're placed. Wireframe mode is a very interesting view. You can also get to wireframe mode in the upper right, left, right. No, it is the I sometimes get that confused. Do you sometimes get your left and right confused? I do. Upper right of the 3D view in the corner up here, this is your wireframe view. This is your solid view. This is your, what is this? Look dev. This is your rendered view. Ooh, we don't need to render anything because we have no light sources. So you can also set them up there. And it's also in the menus. View. How do we want to do this? Actually, I'm not even sure where this is here. I'm so used to using the hotkeys. And here I say something and I didn't check it first. That's okay. You guys will forgive me for that, I hope. Wireframe view. Very useful for building your snowman, but I'm not going to help you build your snowman any more than this. It's time for you to practice. Practice moving, practice scaling. If you need to, practice rotating. Could you use circles? If we Shift A, we could add a circle. Well, sure, we could add a circle here and we could scale it down and maybe use that for eyes. But if we look at it in solid view, the circle isn't actually solid. It's just a circle. And making that solid is kind of tricky. So I'm going to delete that out and say, instead, why not just add another sphere, move it up, scale it to the size that you want an eyeball, and if you absolutely have to have it be flat, scale it a little more in the Z to make it flatter. Don't go too crazy with it, but you can make a nice little disc. And remember, we're focusing on modeling for 3D printing, so it's good to have an object that's solid as opposed to just a flat plane. So this is good. This is good. And then you'll need to, rotate it and place it where it needs to be an eye. But I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop. I want you guys to figure this out and struggle with it a little bit if you need to, but keep going. And if you finish with your snowman, if you make it work out the way that you were wanting it to, if it looks good, whenever you're done with this thing, go ahead and grab a screenshot of it and share it with me. You can go to my Discord channel and share it on what you're making. You can share it with me on Twitter or Instagram. I'd love to see what you guys are modeling. I want to see your snowman. So go ahead, get working on that, and show it to me when you're done. I can't wait to see it. And I will see you guys in the next lesson. Thanks very much for following along with me.